Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first literary event of the year featuring Lisa Scottoline. Mara and I are so excited to be welcoming back many familiar faces and lots of new ones as well. At the end of the book discussion, I want you to all stick around because we will be sharing some upcoming events. But in the meantime, a little bit of housekeeping. Please make sure you all mute yourselves. And if you have any questions or comments or that you'd like to share, please put them in the chat. And now I would like to introduce Rabbi Sue Shankman, who will introduce our guest and lead our discussion.
Thank you, Bonnie. Also, thank you to Mara for all that the two of you have been doing to organize and coordinate these events. They're such nice opportunities for us to all be together. I'm so excited to be with all of you today for, I believe this is it's the first literary club of the year for the Women of Washington Hebrew Congregation. And I am so excited. I will admit to everyone, I'm fangirling just a little bit, or maybe a lot, that we have Lisa Scottoline with us. She is the #1 best-selling and Edgar Award-winning author of 33 novels. She has over 30 million copies of her books in print in the United States and has been published in 35 countries. Scottillini also writes a weekly column with her daughter, Francesca Saratella, for the Philadelphia Inquirer, which have been adapted into a series of memoirs, which I'm so excited to actually look at those and start reading those as well. It's such a wonderful opportunity for the two of you together. She's served as president of the Mystery Writers of America and has taught a course she developed, Justice in Fiction, at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, her alma mater. Her next novel, a thriller, What Happened to the Bennetts, will be published on March 29th, 2022. She lives in the Philadelphia area. So we are excited to have Lisa Scottoline here with us today in partnership with the Jewish Book Council. We're thrilled to welcome her to Washington Hebrew and certainly to the Women of Washington Hebrew Congregation and to our literary club. I encourage you to you can send some questions directly to me in the chat. I'll be monitoring those so that we'll have that opportunity. And also I'm going to place in the chat a link to purchase her book through our Mitzvah Mall, our Amazon Mitzvah Mall, although you can also look at local and independent booksellers as well, and certainly support her and her incredible writing. And I'm so excited that there is one in the works, because that means that we're going to be able to invite you to come back in person, hopefully, once that's released. So without further ado, Lisa Scottoline.
Rabbi, I am so honored. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Mara. Thank you, everybody here. This is my inaugural event too. So I'm a JBC virgin. Here we are. So I thought what I would do is, what I like to do is keep it informal and real. Maybe it's the Philly in me, but I sort of wanted to tell you how I came to be an author and how I came to write Eternal. And then we can open it up to questions of any kind. I'm yours and I'm not shy. What I really am is grateful. And I guess I started life as a lawyer. And at my first divorce, I became an author. I had been a corporate lawyer. It's not like an impressive beginning. To be introduced by a rabbi is an honor in itself. And they say all these great things and it makes you sound great. And then you get on and completely disillusion everybody. That's kind of my job. But when I got divorced, as much as I loved being a lawyer, I wanted to stay home with my daughter. And this was in the time of, many of you probably weren't even born, dress for success, and you had to go back to work, and women wearing ties. It was very strange. And I wanted to stay home with her. And I thought, well, how can I do this on no alimony? And what am I going to do now? Like, basically, what am I going to do now? And I said, well, you always wanted to write. You're a bookaholic. I feel that I am among my people we are bookaholics, right? And I just was like, maybe you can write one. I'd gone to Penn. I majored in the American novel, which we'll talk about in a minute. I thought, just try. And so there ensued there was no succeeding. There was failing for 5 years, writing, sending out novel after novel, getting rejected. Everywhere. My favorite rejection letter was from an agent in New York. And he said, we don't have time to take anybody, but if we did, we wouldn't take you. I'm just telling you that I saw that guy at Book Expo, which is our big trade fair, where I was the keynote speaker. Afterwards, he's calling to me, Lisa. I'm like, oh, I don't have time to, now you know how petty I am. That's how petty I am. 40 years later, I'm still pissed. So basically, during that time, though, I have to be honest with you, it was a wonderful time because I was doing something that felt really meaningful to me, which was staying home and raising my daughter as a single mom, and also trying to become a writer. I lived on credit cards. Now, that meant that we could do anything that a credit card took. I had no cash, but I had credit. And the secret thing is that if you pay your credit bill off at like the same time every month, they increase your credit limit. They don't care. You could be a crack addict for all they know. You get the idea. This is financial advice from Lisa Scottoline, hopefully you'll never need. But I remember that time really well because it was so important. And then just to quick tell one cute kid story, because I had credit cards, I could go to Chili's once a month with her. And that was our big thing. We had the brownie sundae at the end, but we could not go into McDonald's because these were the dark ages and McDonald's did not take credit then. So of course, that's the only place she ever wants to go. So fast forward to, 6 years it takes me to get published. I finally get published for not really a living wage. And I have to pay off all of this credit card debt at 38 grand. My kid is in McDonald's for the first time ever. She is looking around like a space alien, just dazzled by the gleaming surfaces. She's only been in Chili's. So I have to teach her the ways of McDonald's. And I said, well, honey, at this point she can read. It takes me that long to get published. I go, in McDonald's, you stand in the line and you look up and there's the menu. And she looks up at the menu and she says really loudly, but where are the appetizers? It's in Chili's, she always had the appetizer. And every face looks around and goes like, who is this brat? And I go, she's broken, she doesn't know it. And that's, as you know, as a parent, as it should be, that's your problem. But happily, it has a happy ending because, let's see, 34 novels later and about as many years and an Edgar Award, thank you, Rabbi, I have gray roots and a wonderful career in which I'm very blessed to write novels. So all this time I'm writing these books and they're about family and law and justice. But all this time in the back of my mind is a class I had at Penn. I was lucky enough to have a class with Philip Roth, the late Philip Roth. And it wasn't a writing class. It was a seminar of only 15 kids. You had to be picked. And it was reading the novel. So there were some novels from the Holocaust, but actually was very interested in what makes a good novel. And if you can imagine being in a class like taking physics from Einstein, this was it. Because he sat there, and I can tell you exactly what it looked like because I took a picture, because I happened to have been on the yearbook staff. And so I said, well, this is Philip Roth, and Jesus, he should be in and here is a picture I took of Philip Roth teaching this class. This is 1975. Were you born? Please say yes. Rabbi, you weren't.
I most certainly was.
Oh my God, child.
I was 6 years old, but I was here. I think I even knew who Philip Roth was at the time.
I hope you did, because I bet you did, because he was really, really something. And he would come in and just talk for 2 hours, no notes, just knew it all. Flaubert, all kinds of classics, but also authors that we hadn't heard of. Robert Musil, Koba Abe, writers from the other Europe, as he called it, and one such was Primo Levi. I had not read Primo Levi. Primo Levi was an Italian Jewish chemist who lived during Mussolini and was arrested by the Nazis because he was an anti-fascist and sent to Carpi transit camp and then on to Auschwitz. And as you probably know, luckily survived to write the incredible, beautiful, harrowing memoir, Survival in Auschwitz. And we read it for Roth's class, and it just stayed with me. And I have to tell you that part of it, I was horrified because I'll be frank with you, I don't really have a religious affiliation. I wasn't raised with any religion. My mother, we were Catholic, but she was excommunicated because she was divorced. And so divorce is in our DNA, unfortunately. But in any event, so I was raised without a religion, but I was raised with a fairly strong Italian-American identification. And as soon as I learned about what happened under fascism, I got to tell you, it bothered me. I just was like, this is horrifying. How did this happen here? What happened? And I always thought all this time, I'd gone back to Italy. I'm published in Italy. I was doing research, and I always remembered that class and Primo Levy, and I wanted to write about Italian Jews because it really struck me. And I guess as a lawyer too, I feel injustice, as we all do. That's what I love about justice questions. They're always right and wrong and moral and immoral and ethical and unethical. And those are questions you do not need a law degree to answer. Religion tries to answer those questions. Laws try to answer those questions, but they end up being a calculus that involves heart and mind, and I love them. So what ended up happening is at some point I said, you have to write this. And part of what spurred me too was that one of my research trips went back to Rome during the 75th anniversary of what happened to the Jews of Rome in 1945. And I still am furious that this is not more well known. So I said, Lisa, no one's going to write it. You got to write it. You got to change your life. You got to change your career. I had not written historical fiction before. Now, to me, I must tell you, I've always written about law and family and love. So to me, it didn't feel that different, except that it felt bigger in scope. Most of my thrillers take place in 3 days. This takes place in a 20-year period, Mussolini's Ventennio. And also during the 75th anniversary, I was in Rome during the memorials for those who were murdered during the roundup. It's not a term I like to use. It's a mass arrest and a mass murder. And I went to those memorials, just me, lady from Philly suburbs with a pad, taking notes, trying to understand. I spoke to survivors of families, and the weight and the importance of the event really, I just said, I have to do this and I have to do it. I have to do it right. So that changed my life. And here we are. Now, to begin it, I said to myself, well, listen, don't be scared because I'm a little bit insecure. And I said, fear not. This is just a novel like any other with huge significance attached to it. But you have to, what my job is, I mean, I'm in front of all the books that inform my research. They're all really terrific nonfiction works. But my job is to make it understandable and real. And that's what I had to do. And that's what I said to myself, you do that every book. So just think, okay, there's a girl. Well, there's a girl who, by the way, is going to be a lot like me. This is a coming of age book. When you read a lot, so here's something that people tell us. I think it's a little true, that there's two plots in the world. One is a man goes on a journey, or a woman. The other is a stranger comes to town. That's very interesting. As you read, see if you see it. Eternal is a man goes on a journey, right? Coming of age is always going to be a person on a journey. Elisabetta, I had to make her real. And I thought, well, what is she really like? Well, I started to think about, because she's a little bit of a tomboy, which I kind of was, and she's a little behind the curve. And that's best exemplified. I mean, if you're going to tell coming of age, talk about, and you're a woman author, and I don't know, I've never seen it before, but I said, well, you might as well just talk about your first bra. I mean, what is more coming of agey than that? And I remembered that experience because in my experience, I was a tomboy, so I had an undershirt. So in 5th grade and turning to 6th grade was a horror show for me. And the girls came up to me one day at class and said, you need a bra. And I was like, oh my God, I do. And I'm embarrassed. And I spent the whole day like walking around, with books in front of my chest. Do you girls remember that? I kind of remember that, the self-consciousness of being in a cold room and boys and books. And that night I went home to my mother and she worked and she came home that day and I said, Mom, I need a bra. And they're like, now I had a great mother. So she was like, we're going right out. We went out that day, we bought a bra and we went to Horn and Hard Arts afterward. Please tell me you know what Horn and Hard Arts was. Right. Okay. Bonnie, God bless you. So it turned out a wonderful day, but Elisabetta isn't so blessed or lucky as I was. And a little bit, she's trying to decide who she's going to be. And you start to, now I've done all this research and I think, well, it'll be interesting if she wants to be a journalist, because also maybe you felt this way growing up too. I didn't know how you got to be an author, and we can talk about that if you want later. But I actually was a weird little kid who read the newspaper all the time and wrote a lot of letters to the editor. It's embarrassing. They never published them. I had a lot of opinions. And I said, well, give her that. But then when I started to do more and more research, I learned how Mussolini was such a propagandist, and he fired all the people who became journalists. And so then also I love to shop. I'll show you my second prop, which is I bought a typewriter, which would have been Elisabetta's typewriter. This is an Olivetti. This is an Olivetti that's in Italian. It was 1930s typewriter. The Olivetti family was a Jewish anti-fascist family. So God bless them, this amazing machine. And as soon as I got it, now I write thank you notes on it. Also, I realized that when I hold it up, it looks like an accordion. So you're at my cousin's wedding, but that's an aside. I love this thing. And as soon as I got it, it got me a little more in touch with her. And then who's your other character? Well, there's Marco. Because Marco, to me, answers the question of why did they go for it? Why did Italians follow fascism? And it was interesting because what people say is, well, Mussolini made the trains run on time. I'm here to tell you, I'm an amateur historian. That's just not true. Because if you know anything about Italy and you've been there, it doesn't run on time. Nothing runs on time. They care about carbohydrates. They do not care about time. So it just was a bad answer to me. And weirdly, this is where I tell you, I lower my voice like my dogs will hear, that I knew a little about, I had a feel for the fascist period because my mother is the youngest of a very large number of children. I'm going to tell you, if you're not eating, if you're eating it, you're going to throw up in your mouth. My mother is the youngest of 19 children. I know. The first husband, there were two husbands. Linda Cohen just fell over. Linda, I hear you. It's disgusting. I wasn't going to tell you. I'm trying to impress you guys, but it's true. But what it means is that if you imagine how sadly my mother has passed. So when I grew up, I knew all my aunts and uncles. There were two husbands. The first one died, like you can guess how. I'd be like, dude, why don't you read at night like everybody else? Whatever you had to prove, you proved it. But in any event, what it meant as a personal matter is I knew my uncles, my really, really old uncles, the age span was incredible. If my mother's the youngest, they lived under fascism. We're kind of just off the boat. I have aunts and uncles who were born and raised in Italy. So I was like, why did you follow Mussolini? Like, what did you do? And I also read the speeches of Mussolini. Anyway, to make a long story short, it was very clear to me what Mussolini was doing and why people went for him, which is all of his speeches are about nationalist pride. He was terribly ultra-nationalist. He was so nationalist that it got a name, Italianità, Romanità, the pride of just being Italian. That's the carrot of fascism. You're very, very special. You are part of the people that conquered the whole world. It's not a bad argument. And Marco is the one who illustrates it. And I didn't really think about it that way because I don't outline, but I thought, well, there's interesting. Because Marco is a character who is so winning and so popular. And I had a guy like that in my 6th grade class. We all do. But he has a deficiency in that we know now he's dyslexic. But so I did a deep dive in dyslexia in the 30s in Rome, and you understand very clearly what, unfortunately, even as it's kind of not always quickly diagnosed now, a kid with dyslexia is going to feel like I interviewed one kid, and they said, it's like being dumb and not even knowing why. You feel like you're dumb and you don't even know why. You're falling behind in reading, which is the universal intelligence. You're behind your class. You can't figure out why. Imagine Marco, who his best friend is Sandro, a certified genius, right? And Elisabetta, who loves to read. And so Marco has a terrible secret and a terrible feeling of inadequacy. And so when Mussolini comes along and says, you're special, son, you don't need to read. You're the glory that was Rome. And you see it in the novel exemplified in that scene. All of this research is absolutely true. One of the other things that Mussolini did was excavate Rome, replan the entire city so that all of the traffic routes would drive by the ruins. If you have been to Rome, you know, if you drive by the Colosseum, right, Rabbi? You drive by the Colosseum, there's a sidewalk between you and ancient history. And you go, for me, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, where is the, where's the buffer? Where's the protection? All Mussolini's doing. He wanted the Italians to see who they were. And Marco buys in. And I think that was the answer. And of course, then we come to Sandro, because what was so startling to me to learn, and why I thought this story needed to be told so much, is that, we've heard a lot about Nazis, and we know that Nazis were anti-Semitic, but fascism in Italy was not anti-Semitic when it began life. And so Jews, Italian Jews, joined the fascist party in the same proportion as Gentiles. Even though they were a minority in a country, the proportion was the same. Fascism billed itself as, and it was, a conservative, law and order, pro-business party. Massimo, a character I love in this novel, the lawyer who seeks justice and law, he buys in. Beppe buys in. And it isn't, and it's, to me, that was so important because there's so much flip-flopping in Italy's history at this time that impacts people. And I thought, well, that's the stuff of irony. How ironic and also dramatic and wrenching is it that Massimo joins this party, so proud to be a fascist. And then when Mussolini joins with Hitler, all of the Jews in fascism and who weren't fascist were horribly betrayed. And then Mussolini, I wanted to really, it took some time in the novel, but I was fine with that because I wanted this to be, I must tell you, fairly definitive. And it is. I know what I'm talking about. I'm a lawyer and I researched these laws and I didn't want it to just be like the superficial view, like one day there was a roundup. That isn't what happened. What happened was fascism turned against Jews, and they enact a barrage of laws that are anti-Semitic that aim to strip Jews of their property, profession, livelihood, party membership, and ultimately citizenship. And those fascist acts are what, when Italy flips and surrenders, are what frankly serve the Jewish community up to the Nazis to come in. And ultimately, as I think I said in the novel, and I sort of wanted to take my time with that too. Because, for example, I have a wonderful editor. When I handed this novel in, it was 1,000 pages. I just wanted it to be complete, as a matter of record. And my editor was wonderful. He said, I think we have to figure out where you can edit this because a lot of people don't want to read 1,000 pages. But I'm like a James Clavell, Leon Uris person. I love big books, right? But I was able to pare it down. And my editor and I talked, for example, about the library scene. And I know not everybody's read the novel, but I'm not giving too much away. That when the Nazis came in, I want to take a second to talk about that chronology of events, because when you think about what the Nazis did, it raises a natural question. What the Nazis did specifically was first they arrest the Carabinieri. So they leave Rome defenseless. They take away her police, right? Then they sack the library, right? They break into the temple. They take the money. They're thieves. They take the money. They profane sacred spaces. Then they return and sack the library. This is the heritage of the Jewish community all over the world, and it is world history. That is absolutely true that they take, and not only that, play with, throw out the window, horrify the Jewish community standing outside because they all live right there. And then ultimately, the Nazis arrest and deport, to send to Carpi, and then on to Auschwitz. And when I saw that chronology, I said to myself, why did they do it in that order? Because if you want the path of least resistance, what you would do is take the Carabinieri, right? Arrest the whole community, send them away. Then you can steal everything they own. You can sack the temple. You can take every piece of library. And I thought, and of course I had historians that I consulted in this as well, but I did my own research and they backstopped me. And I said, my sense is they did this just to be cruel. And he said, yeah, That's pretty much what we all think, that they did it to dominate. They did it out of hate. Now, when I came to that point in the research, I said, you have to really understand this and make this understandable. And part of the way I do that, and bear with me a second, it seems like an aside, but it's not, is through food. Food is so important to Italian culture. It's so important to a Jewish culture. It's so important. Look, we just love it. What can I tell you? And there's another writing axiom, and it is show, don't tell, right? I can't tell you food matters. I have to show you. What I really wanted to do in Eternal was show you the effects of fascism and then Nazism on the Jewish community. And food was a really important way to do that, because when I was over there, I mean, I in the so-called ghetto every day, everybody, we love it. I mean, I have Jewish cuisine books. So I had to show you the food in the beginning and the abundance of it and how important it is to every family. And how we all give down, there's certain holiday recipes and there's family recipes. And Sandro's family has a cook, as a housekeeper, and they have her family recipes that aren't even their family recipes, because the food is so much part of the culture and so much part of the ties that bind. And then you start to learn what happened really, which is the overarching macro view is that the Allied plan, our plan, was to bomb Italy in the grain regions so that they would weaken, because frankly, the Italians were told this will be over in no time. But what ended up happening is during the war, there was no shortage of pasta, shortages of bread, shortages of their staple, their religion, right? And that happened. And then what happens is when the Nazis, so they surrender, it's integral to their surrender. And then what happens when the Nazis come in horribly, and I thought this had not been treated enough, is that they weaponize food against the Jews. They try to starve the Jews of Rome. And so you have that scene when Sandro's family is around the table. And you remember, as a reader, I hope, those wonderful days of great meals and abundance. And here they are. And they have tiny, tiny portions and watered down, we say gravy, tomato sauce. There's nothing more horrifying. And part and parcel of the Nazi plan was to allow typhoid to flourish and tuberculosis. And it was just as horrible as it could be, leading into the most horrible mass murder. And I felt that when I started researching this book 20 years ago, there was not a museum to this horrific event, which, by the way, October is the month when this all happened. Now there is a museum. And there are little golden bricks, brass bricks that an artist put down. But it really was incumbent upon me, I think, in Eternal, to tell that story and to tell its darkest parts and not to whitewash them and not have them be off screen, to have them be to characters you love, I hope. But also when I was writing it, and as I say, I don't write with an outline. It was like riding a lot of horses all at once. In this novel, what I kept coming back to was the light. And I think it came to me in that moment. I don't think I'm giving too much away, but so be it. When Marco, because this book is about love on so many levels. It's not just the romantic love between Elisabetta and Sandro. It's about the love that the two friends have, Marco and Sandro. They never give up on each other. It's about that identity. At some point, Marco going, am I my uniform? What am I doing to my friend? Who am I? Why? How can I participate in this? And then it's the love between these families, the Terezzi's and Sandro's family. It's love of God. There's all different kinds of God in this book, and everybody worships in their own way. It's love of country. There is love in this book. And when I thought about it, when I wrote it through, when I had Marco stand in that ghetto, and I put videos on my website, you can see I actually placed, I know what Sandro's apartment would be. It still exists. And I can stand there and pretend in my mind that I'm Marco and that I lived through this, because they lived through it. They come out the other side of it. They understand where they went wrong. And the answer to the hate that makes you destroy a library, the hate that makes you round up a people and deport them and murder them, men, women, children. 15 people returned from the ghetto, one woman. It is the hate. The answer really is the love. And I know that might sound a little trite, but it really came to me when I was writing this novel, and I wanted everything to be real. You know, I said to them, I want a significant paper content. This is me being a controlling. You're not surprised. Any woman worth knowing is a little controlling. We're a little bit of a handful, aren't we, ladies? Good. I said, I've noticed that a lot of book covers lately are feeling a little slick and synthetic, and where's the cotton? I want this to feel, hear it? I want this, they put the cotton back in the book cover for me. I found this map, which was actually a map taken from something else I bought, a little 1930s map of Southern Italy, which has all the old names. And I said, got the rights for this. I put it in there. I wanted the font to be authentically Italianate and period. It's written in a period style. If you read me before, and thank you for that, it's not my typical voice, but you can't write a contemporary American voice for a period fiction, especially one that's going to be about as significant an event as what happened to the Jews of Rome. And when I came to think about what I want to put in my first quote, I love this stuff because, as you guys do, I read all the time. I'm always underlining, oh, that's so cool. Remember that? That person really got that right. What I kept coming back to was love conquers all things. And part of me said, gee, I wish you could think of something that sounds a little more impressive. I got some more impressive quotes on other parts, but I was like, Lisa, like throw some heat. You're supposed to be, you know, but I kept coming down to the fact that its simplicity was its beauty and also its truth. Someday I'm going to write a novel that will prove that beauty and truth and love and justice are all the same thing. This is almost that. But when I stood there in Marco's shoes, I said, the answer is love. That's the answer. And never lose sight of it. Never, ever. And it reminded me of a wonderful quote by Primo Levy, if I can just quote this and then we'll open to questions. Primo Levy said, as soon as you think of somebody, another human being, as different from you, you will think of him as other than you. And when you think of him as other than you, you will think of him as less than you. And in the end, there is a camp. Now that is the best enunciation of that horribly slippy slope that I can give you. And so in a way, even though this novel has its dark parts, because they're true, and they need to be in the public view, not just in the wonderful writings of historians, but I view myself as somebody who can put it into someone's hands. I'm delighted that, you know, every review, and of course I check them every day on Goodreads, like a freak, but I do, because all of my books matter to me. But this one was a risk. And I didn't know if it would be accepted because I'm not really known for writing historical fiction. And a lot of people said, gee, I didn't know she writes this kind of book, but I loved it. But most of them saying you can check it for yourself. I know a lot about the Holocaust and I didn't know about this. And that makes me beyond happy because that was my goal, to tell the story of those people who perished and put it in context and make you feel it, make you see the way that happened, but also the way that it can never happen again, which is, of course, is the point. So that's eternal. And that's who I am and why I wrote it and what's really behind it. Now, already I'm emotional. So ask me anything you want and we can talk about any aspect of anything you want to talk about.
So we have a number of questions. And first, I want to say thank you again. Really, personally, and not just being a fan, but it is a very different style of your writing. But having spent time in Rome on my honeymoon, and having some Italian, actually, we have traced. We had rabbis in our family in from Padua. I have a ketubah in my home from Italian Jews, not directly related to us, but that has come down to me.
Wow.
And certainly the food is, I have a number of Italian Jewish cookbooks.
Me too.
And also the experience, even still to this day, because of other things that have happened since World War II in Rome, in the ghetto. I know when we were in Rome, we tried to get, we wanted to go to services while we were there. And we had a great difficulty finding out what time they were. Everything was very secretive in the ghetto. We actually ended up in the back of a pharmacy where we happened to be. We were looking for something. We were trying to find someone who could tell us something. But in the back of the pharmacy, there was some Judaica on the shelves, and so we asked someone in the shop, and they were a little wary. Why are they asking about the synagogue? Why are they asking about services? There's a very insular sense of wanting to protect. But you certainly brought all of not just Rome, and just a very, I can't pronounce it correctly, but that whole neighborhood, Elisabeta's neighborhood, and brought it to life. I know you spent significant time in Italy in preparing. Where else did you go? And were you just in Rome? And also, did you speak to people who were around at the time? Did you speak to any Italian survivors? I know, as you said, from the ghetto, there were not many. But did you have a chance to talk to some to get some of those perspectives?
Right. Well, thank you for what you're saying. It's first of all, there's a couple of things. First, I think you're absolutely right that I think there's a protectiveness about the community. And I must tell you, I do think there's a little bit of reluctance to acknowledge what was done. I mean, I was coming out as a lawyer, I was like, why didn't we have a Nuremberg trial about this? Like, why was there no globally? This is, and I asked a historian that, and he said to me, nobody wanted another Nuremberg. And I thought, oh, that's just wrong. And I must tell you, when vis-a-vis your question, did you travel outside Rome? Yes, I went to the transit camp at Carpi, which you can see those videos on my website. They're all there. It's all a nice companion to the book. But that concentration, let's call it, I think we'll call it a transit camp. That's technically correct. It is open one day of the week, and that day is Sunday. Now that is not, and when I got out of the cab, because you have to travel there, you have to take a cab, the cab driver said, this is a black mark on our history. And I was like, yeah, but you're still hiding it. I mean, Sunday is not a day people are necessarily going to museums. They don't make it easy is what I'm trying to say. I was the only person there. So, vis-a-vis, I do think there's a whitewash, and that made me angry. So all the more reason I got cranky and I was going to write it. I spent a lot of time in the ghetto, and I did speak with the survivor. Unfortunately, there's no language barrier. I don't speak Italian. I understand a lot of Italian, but I don't really speak it. So I did have an interpreter. And I must tell you, I didn't want to, I wanted to be very respectful. I had done all my research, and I wanted to convey to her what my intent was. And she was really happy that I was writing about it. And that happened also at the memorial where there were survivals. They really wanted the story to be told. But at the same time, I really didn't want to plumb her for her experience in the middle of her beautiful sunny day. She was not there for my edification. And so I kept it pretty superficial, but I did tell her what I was doing, because you're walking around, I'm there every day with the legal pad, taking pictures, talking to people. They want to know. And I was very happy to tell them. So I think that basically answers all the questions that you answered.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have more that sending in, and one is about the house at the beginning of the picture of the house at the beginning of each part. And so, what is the significance about the house. Also, somewhat related, somebody else shared that they're a huge fan and followed your weekly Zooms on Italy.
Oh, nice.
I need to know if those are still on the internet.
Yes, they're on my website, and they're on Amazon, and they're on Goodreads. So you had asked me, I spent a lot of time in Trastevere and also in the ghetto and throughout Rome. I went to all of these videos you can see, and I would love for people to look at them because it's just edifying. Like, there is no scene in the novel that takes place in Gestapo headquarters, but I went to Gestapo headquarters, also the only visitor there, also has very strange hours of visitation. And I took a video there. You can see, where the Nazis took anti-fascists and Jews and murdered them. I went to the site of the massacre at the Ardeatine Caves, not in the novel, but also very important to the time period and to learn. So, now I do forget the question. I try to remember the questions.
So the other question was about the house.
So I took a lot of pictures because I really wanted to have these be real locations. In fact, on the website, there's an interactive map. So you could see where I think the house that I picked for Elisabetha's was. The picture between the parts is one of those photos. And we just decided that it looked so lovely. And I just loved it. And they put it in the book between the separate parts. So that was really, I just wanted the reader to experience this time almost every way they could from the moment they opened the book. And so all of these details mattered. And as you say, the style's different. I learned, for example, when you read a lot of period fiction, like you're going to read Elsa Morante, you're going to read Italo Calvino, you're going to read Bassini, you're going to read The Garden of the Finzi-Continis. You hear the locution, so you learn, for example, the turns of phrase. So I said to myself, well, you can't have like a Corvette driving through the book. That would be anachronistic. In the same way, they don't really use the word gossip. They say, talk behind your hands. And I love that phrase. There were so many different phrases that they use that I put in the novel. So all of it, I hope, you're really trying to make a world and live in that world. And you want that for the reader, and you need that for the writer. It was total immersion for me in the writing, as every novel I do is, but this was different because it was a different time and space. And then at some point you realize that time and space are in fact an illusion, and they're conflated to a certain extent. So when Marco looks up at that window, he can see Sandro there. And isn't that true? I can feel my mother right now. She's been passed away for many, many years. That is eternal.
Who would you say is your favorite character?
Oh my God. I love them all. I have a crazy, I have a rich imaginary life. I have a crush on Bradley Cooper. You know what I mean? It's all up here. And to make them real, I have to feel them. Like, for example, Elisabetha's quandary, the superficial story of this book is, which guy does she choose? And I didn't know who she was going to choose. And I didn't know who was going to be alive, and I didn't know who was going to be dead, and I didn't know who I would choose. And I kept going back and forth. And I still do go back and forth. There's something about a man who will listen to you, having never had that. It's a fantasy of mine. But she's a talkative girl. I get that. So, and I thought when I was writing that part about her, I didn't know that she was going to turn to novels. And then I was writing the novel that she was writing, and Nona came to life. And I thought, as silly as this sounds, I realized, my God, that's my mother. And that saltiness, my mother adored me to the marrow, but she was a wise guy. So that saltiness that Nona has, my mother had too. And when she's an angel, I was like, oh my God, Mom, you just lose your damn mind. If you don't lose your mind when you're writing something emotional, no reader will cry. No reader will laugh. It won't mean anything to them. That's my secret. That's my rationalization for being incredibly emotional. For a person with no estrogen, I'm way out of control. That's all I can tell you.
Two more questions. One, will you go back to writing mysteries, or has Eternal changed your focus of writing?
Both things are true. Listen, I feel very, very lucky. I mean, like I'm one of these people every day. Like I have to believe in some God because I know how lucky I am. And I feel like I'm, a Jewish wannabe. Like I've got to get a religion soon because I thank God that I have this life in books and I get to tell these stories. And as a woman at 65, my daughter's grown up, and especially being a single mom, I feel like this is my turn. When you're a single mom for all that time, and every mom knows we give so much and we need to. And what's funny, when I started writing this book, I said, this is historical fiction, that's scary. I don't know if you can do it, you never did. And part of me is going, well, wait a minute. When you're going through a period of history, you don't know it. And nothing taught me that better than this pandemic, right? I mean, last March, I remember watching the videos of people in China and going, this is terrible. I hope this doesn't come here. And then 1 week later, my daughter's in the West Village. I'm like, you need to get home. You need to be right home. This is scary. This is bad. And I didn't know how bad it would get. But we women, I know men too, but I live alone with a bunch of dogs and a cat. So I can only talk about women. But I was the one, right? I'm spray painting, what I'm Cloroxing my cereal boxes for months. I'm trying to figure out how to buy masks. I'm trying to figure out how dry your skin can get if you put alcohol on your hands 55 times a day. I'm doing all this dumb crap. And then but when I thought back, I said, we were entering a period of history and we didn't know it. We can look back now. Oh, we're all vaccinated. This is great. But that's your key, Lisa. Like women, that's what I love about Elisabetta. And I see that spirit in these women. Look at Arlene now. You're so sweet. I just love you guys. Like we get through by putting one foot in front of the other. Elisabetta the boys poop out on her. She loses her job. She gets bombed in San Lorenzo and then she gets pregnant. It all goes to hell in a handbasket. She is still standing and God bless us. Isn't that us? Isn't that women? I started out writing because I read Nancy Drew and I was like, where are the women leads? I'm a lawyer for 30 years. Why are we still pouring coffee in these crime fiction books? I'm over it. So look at me getting carried away. But I basically started writing about women main characters. I saw so much strength in us, my mother, my best friends, my daughter, that we've gotten each other through breast cancer, job loss, and now a global pandemic. What? We're on a Zoom. It didn't work twice, but we figured it out. And God bless us and your community. So lucky to have this wonderful, warm and loving, welcoming rabbi in this community of each other. I honestly don't think it's an accident that it's built around these events are built around books. Books bring us together and they remind us of the commonalities. So it's not just some BS on MSNBC. It's really what is really core to human beings comes down to love. I mean, it really does.
Lisa, that's part of what moved me even about the title of the book, even before I had started reading it, because that is something that, we talk about eternal. Rome is the eternal city. We talk about love as this eternal emotion. And when we, in Jewish tradition, we talk about God, one of the names for God is the eternal one. And so on the note of what you mentioned earlier, I am happy to explore connections to Judaism and understanding of Judaism with you further. If you love books, you are already Jewish at heart and you're most of the way there. So you and I are going to talk some more about
I'm not even kidding. When I registered, it said, are you interested in being a member of the congregation? I said, I might be, but I have to go to my Zoom.
All right, well, we'll continue that conversation another time. But a really important question that I loved, because it's something that I was thinking about as, not only as I read the book and I had this sense of being drawn back to Rome and drawn back to Italy. And so Valerie Letterberg asked the question that I also was not brave enough to ask earlier, but which is, we would love to have you take us on a Jewish tour of Rome. Explore Rome and explore Italy. We have such incredibly strong roots in Italy, and that might be something for us to think about and talk about. And as you continue with your writing, certainly you have all of us would be thrilled to read. Now we hear the beagle. He's putting in his 2 cents that he thinks a women's trip to Jewish Italy would be perfect.
That would be
All the classes
amazing.
that we can enjoy.
I would love, love, love to do that. That would be amazing.
So we'll put that on. Sorry about the.
That's okay. I feel right at home.
Here we are. Lisa, having you with us today was so wonderful, just to be able to have the conversation, just to listen to you, not just read your words, but hear your words and feel that sense of connection to you. And truly, that's what makes you such a gifted writer on any topic in any way. And I happen to be a huge fan of mystery, but to be able to know that you bring so much of yourself into your writing, and you give so much of yourself, not only on the pages of your book, but as we've all experienced and witnessed just now, even more so in person. We are so grateful to you. We hope to be able to welcome you back in person. Please, in person sometime soon. And also, even if we don't get to Italy, in the next 6 months or so, we every now and then have taken a Women of Washington Hebrew trip to Philadelphia. So who knows, maybe we can
come over. You're invited. Oh my God.
We'll put that in the hopper as well.
Thank you. I'm so touched and so grateful and really so honored by this. Thank you, Rabbi, so much. And thank you, all of you, and Mara and Bonnie. Thanks for making this happen. This has just been, it just means a lot to me. It's a career highlight, I must tell you.
Well, thank you. If you can only, you've already reached your heights, but we are always here and huge fans and so thrilled. Nancy Miller wrote in the chat, this was more fun than a party. This was our opening party. So we love that we're able to share this with you. And a reminder to everyone that the link to purchase Lisa's book, Eternal, is in the chat. So you can feel free. And also it's on our website so that you can go there. And again, we thank the Jewish Book Council for connecting us with Lisa. But now we are connected, and we are so thrilled to have you as a part of our sisterhood and a part of the Women of Washington Hebrew Congregation. So thank you.
Now I'm going to really cry. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you all, and please stay safe and well.